Hey everyone, and welcome to the Friday edition of Just Parlays. I'm Jim Williams, your host, and with me, Scott Reichel. And Scott and I are holding down the fort as Chris is out on assignment. So, Scotty, the NFL got underway last night with a Buffalo Bills convincing victory over the Rams at SoFi Stadium. Your thoughts?
It was a football game. It wasn't a good one, but it was a
Right.
football game. That counts for something, right? That's a step
Yep.
in the right direction. I can't say I'm surprised. I liked Buffalo for the entire week. I
Mm-hmm.
gave that out on a couple podcasts, etc. I just think the Bills are the best team in the league. And I've mentioned it publicly. I think that the Bills are really a complete team from top to bottom. They were also without their number one corner yesterday,
Mm-hmm.
and nobody noticed because they dominated that badly in the
Right.
game. The Rams, I was concerned about, and I ended up winning my play today. I had Stafford to throw a pick, and
Mm-hmm.
he overachieved. He threw 3. But the Rams, I saw a couple red flags. And I
Mm-hmm.
know it's early. I'm not telling you this team's going to be awful.
Right.
But Stafford was not good, and he's battled
Right.
elbow issues the entire offseason, which I think is
Right.
a serious problem. Allen Robinson was a total lost cause. I don't know what
Mm-hmm.
exactly happened there. And if
Right.
he's supposed to take over the OBJ role or the Robert Williams role, he's
Mm-hmm.
got to do better than one catch. That's a
Right.
serious problem. The offensive line was a disaster. The Bills sacked him 7 times. He was getting decapitated almost every single passing play.
And they
And
didn't blitz.
they didn't blitz at all. And they just
Right.
absolutely crushed the offensive line of the Rams. And
Mhm.
Cam Akers had 3 carries for 0 yards. I
Mhm.
was incredibly low on Cam Akers going into the year. I think
Mhm.
Henderson's fine, though. Running backs don't exactly matter. That's more of a
Right.
fantasy concern for
Right.
Akers. But the main takeaways for me, the Rams' offensive line was awful.
Right.
Stafford was not very good, along with Allen Robinson.
Mhm.
And Jalen Ramsey was brutal. Now, I'm not going to blame the defense entirely because the
Right.
Rams' offense scored 10 points.
Right.
But Jalen Ramsey got targeted 7 times, and
Right.
he gave up a perfect passer rating. If
Mhm.
you're allegedly the number one corner in the league and
Mhm.
you're getting torched in the first game of the season and you're
Right.
paying him that much money, that's a serious red flag.
Yeah.
Those are my takeaways.
Yeah. It's the only thing that looked normal for the Rams was Cooper Cup.
Yeah, he did
Um,
Cooper Cup things.
right.
I mean,
He ran routes and got open, and when Stafford wasn't on his back, he could find him.
yeah,
But
but did you have any other takeaways I didn't mention?
not
Because it
really.
just felt like a bloodbath.
It just it showed one team was prepared for the season and the other one isn't. And to your point, does that mean that the Rams are, uh, in trouble? Not necessarily, but certainly there's concern. And I think Sean McVay has some soul searching to do and see if they can fix it. But for those of you, including yourself, who are, you know, heavy on what the Bills can do, they certainly made a statement tonight or last night. I'm sorry, and said, "Hey, look, we're here, and we have no intention of, you know, not living up to expectations."
Yeah, and the Bills looked as good as advertised. They looked as good as
Hmm.
I thought they were going to be. Von Miller with
Yeah,
2 sacks in his debut. I do want to address one point, though, that James made there.
sure.
He asked if the Rams, or maybe he was just stating he thinks that the Rams are hungover from the offseason with winning the title. Do you believe in the hangover theory, or you
No,
just think that teams just have a bigger target on their backs because they have the silverware?
well, I think part of the part of it is, Scott, is that
Or the
a lot of people,
jewelry, not the silverware. You know what I mean?
right?
Whatever.
Exactly. They get the trophy.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it, people forget that most NFL rosters, even those who are Super Bowl champion rosters, turn over about 25% of their team
Mm,
on that 53-man roster. So each one of those players has to be a contributor. And we mentioned before that they lost Von Miller. There were other players on that 53-man roster that they loses. It's why repeating as a Super Bowl champion is very difficult to do because you're going to lose roster players.
mm.
So, I don't think it's as much of a hangover as it is. Do I have the right guys on the field when I need them on the field? What am I missing? You didn't have Odell Beckham Jr. and he's hurt, and so would that have made a difference? I don't think so, but I don't know.
They couldn't block anybody. I mean, that was
No,
really the main takeaway from the game.
yeah,
But I don't believe in the hangover theory. I do
Mhm.
believe it matters, but not
Sure.
because the team doesn't care. I just think other
No.
teams around the league start circling that game on the calendar a bit more
Right.
frequently, and you're more likely to get the best effort from opponents on a consistent basis when you're
Right.
the defending champions.
And
That's
that's
how I
100.
view the hangover theory. I just think
Yeah.
that they see
Yeah.
defending champions showing up this weekend. We
Sure.
better be ready, and they game plan accordingly. That's how I look at it.
I would agree. And also, the extra games that you play in the playoffs
They're
gives,
exhausting.
yeah, they are. There's no question about that. But they also give teams extra film on you.
Yeah.
And so what you did that might have worked last year, there might be some of those plays that don't work this year because people are going, okay, wait a minute. They ran this play, 7 times in the postseason. We didn't see it very much. Now we can. So plus they also play, when you win the Super Bowl, you play a very difficult schedule. And opening against Buffalo was, the gods of scheduling did them no favors on that one. So, again, first week takeaway, I agree with you 100%. The Rams just didn't look prepared and they looked vulnerable. Buffalo, on the other hand, looked like they are in cruise control on, game one.
They're a Super
But
Bowl pick, and
yeah,
I doubt you're going to find a better debut for Week
no,
1. I mean that
no.
you can't really play much better than that. Besides the 2 interceptions early on
Sure.
by Allen, one of them wasn't really his fault, but still,
Hmm.
yeah. I also agree with Richie though, which is why I like the Bills. I just
Hmm.
think they're the better team.
Yeah.
And Stafford, I know that the protection or the lack thereof didn't help.
Hmm. Right.
Are you concerned at all by the elbow? Because people can claim that it's not a big deal and that he's allegedly healthy. Do you really want your quarterback to have like listed elbow issues before even playing a game? I think that has to be a red flag, doesn't it?
Sure, of course. Even mentally, from the standpoint of the quarterback himself, if when he releases the ball, if he feels a little bit of a twinge, in
Yeah,
his elbow, it's
changing
going
some
to weigh on your
mechanics
head,
and whatever.
right?
Yeah.
It's like a pitcher throwing a baseball.
Mhm.
If you have something that tweaks in your arm and you decide, as you just said, if you move that arm slot a little bit, just maybe to the left or the right, just to get that comfort in your elbow, it's going to affect the way the ball flies. So there's that, and there's also the situation where Stafford is not as mobile as he might need to be whenever his offensive line isn't protecting. So there's a couple of factors that at least, as you said, and I agree with you, cause people to have pause on where are these Rams. Now, whether or not, one game does not a season make, and we'll see next time around. But last night, Buffalo cemented themselves as the Super Bowl favorites from the AFC, and the NFC, as we said when we started yesterday, it's a bit muddled. It remains muddled now.
Yeah, I agree.
So, how about tennis last night? There were some very interesting and fun tennis matches.
There was. One was a lot more competitive than the other one. You had Garcia, who I actually leaned to the over in that match.
Uh-huh.
Not even close. She got her ass
Right.
kicked. Jabeur
Yeah.
absolutely destroyed her. And then you had the Swiatek match against Sabalenka, which I
Mhm.
didn't have a play on listed. However, somebody asked me in the comment section during the live
Yesterday.
stream
Yeah.
what I liked, and I
Right.
said I like Swiatek in 3, and
Mhm.
Swiatek 1 and 3. So that match went the
Sure.
exact way that I thought it would. Probably a decent plus price if you had
Mhm.
Swiatek in 3. Swiatek's number 1 in the world for good reason. She's
Mhm.
going for her first non-clay Grand Slam title.
Mhm.
Early glancer opinion, I
Mhm.
kind of like Jabeur. I think
Right.
Jabor's been playing very well. Garcia was on fire, and I mean, Jabeur destroyed her in basically an hour. It was really not even competitive. Jabeur lost in the Wimbledon final. Heartbreaking match there to Rybakina. I
Right.
think Jabeur gets it done, in my opinion. The issue with
Mhm.
Swiatek, I still think she's a great player. I don't think her serve is good enough or
Right.
consistent enough to win a lot of free service games. And we saw it even
Mhm.
in yesterday's match. She lost the
Mhm.
first set. She was down a break in the
Right.
third set. She was down 4-3, and
Mhm.
she broke the next 2 service games for Sabalenka, but she really has not served well for most of this tournament. And
Mhm.
Jabor's a good returner. So if you want some early predictions, I
Yeah.
think Jabor's very live to win the final.
Right.
That's my initial thoughts.
Well, going, as you said, for a title that isn't on clay,
Yeah.
and the surfaces are so different. The clay the clay game is slow and methodical, and you have to pound it. That's not the case when you're playing on the surface at Flushing Meadows. It's fast. It basically, if you've got a good serve game, it certainly benefits you over someone who doesn't, because you can hit the ball harder and make it more difficult to return. So it's gonna be a fun final, and I think you're probably spot on, with the early predictions on that one.
I like the over. I think it's going to be competitive one way or another. I think you're
Right.
going to see it probably go 3. I just think Jabor, from what we saw yesterday,
Mm-hmm.
she had arguably the best serving match of her career. I
Mm-hmm.
think she's going to have less trouble with her service games than
Mm-hmm. All
Swiatek will. So I'm leaning to Jabor probably in 3, if I had to
right.
guess.
All right. So it's a college football weekend, and we got a number of very attractive college football games coming up. Just a real quick couple of things here with regard to our sponsor, which is Caesar Sportsbook. Caesar Sportsbook has a great deal for first-time users. Now get up to $1,250 free bet insurance. Download the app and use it today. So basically, if you make a bet, $10, $15, whatever it is, all the way up to $1,250, Caesars has got you covered. So by all means, check out our friends at Caesars. Download their app today. Remember that in some states, the limit is 21. You need to check that out, and always bet responsibly. That's the most important thing that we can tell you. And even though Chris King is not here today, don't forget that Chris, whoops, there we go. Don't forget that Chris King's best bet premiums are in the show box below. So even though Chris isn't here today, you can still hook up with him by linking to the show box below and all the good things that Chris has got going on. So there's that. So yeah, college football weekend. You want to start with tonight? How do you want to go?
Whichever way you want to go. I don't mind.
All right. Let's throw. Let's start. We'll come
I am going
back
to
to
throw, by the
tonight.
way, I'm going to throw something
Good.
out there. I do have the
Yeah.
college football show up next.
Right.
So I gave out one play that I'm going to give out on that show.
Okay.
If there's a game that I have, I'll probably plead the 5th on it.
Okay.
But I am assuming if we don't have any of those games that I have, I'll gladly
Right.
talk about it. So just keep that in mind.
Okay. For sure. Okay. Here's what we got. These are the games that are what television considers the key games for tomorrow. Noon, big noon on Fox. Number 1 Alabama visits Texas, and heads to Austin for a big game there. Then 3:30 on ABC. It's number 24 Tennessee at number 17 Pitt. That game's to be played at Pittsburgh. That's called the Johnny Majors Classic, who coach obviously both of those units. 7 p.m. It's Kentucky and my Florida Gators, number 12. 7:30 it's ABC, and it's a USC Stanford game. Let's start with Alabama, Texas. What do you think on that particular game?
So this was the play that I have for the
Okay,
college
well
football
then
show, but
don't.
I already gave it out on Morning Wood, so I can go through
Okay,
this one. I
all
got
right,
Bama. I think
okay.
Bama crushes this team. I think
Mm-hmm.
Texas, even though they had a nice week 1 win
Mm-hmm.
against Ewell Monroe, congratulations. I don't
Yeah,
think that really means much. Bama killed Utah State. Now, Utah State's a weaker team than last year, but they did win their conference.
sure.
Bama gave up 7 first downs in the entire game,
Hmm.
and they had over 500 yards of offense. I think
Right.
Bama is easily either 1A or 1B with
Mm-hmm.
Georgia. They're the best
Right.
team or tied to be the best team in the country. Texas, I think, is pretty good. I'm still not a Sarkisian guy.
Right.
Ewers, I think, is okay. He threw a
Mm-hmm.
pick against Ewell Monroe, which is a bit concerning. But
Yeah.
Texas' offense really didn't do much against Ewell Monroe. They scored 50-something points because they had a pick 6 and
Mm-hmm.
a punt return touchdown. So the
Right.
offense wasn't great. But Bama, we see this every year. They play
Right.
an out-of-conference opponent that's usually ranked,
Right.
and they kick the crap out of them. I mean, they win by 30. It's the same story every year. Do you think Texas keeps this game close, or do you think Bama runs them out of the building? Because I think Bama's going to run them out of the building.
I think that Nick Saban wants to crush Texas so bad.
Former assistant as well with Sarkisian.
You're right, that this situation is one of those games where he has game planned this game probably starting on the second week of practice in the spring. Just saying, okay, you know what? Everybody thinks Texas is on the return. Let us go to their house and beat the living crap out of them.
That's what I
And
see.
I just no. I was at 20 points. Is that
It's
the spread?
20.
Yeah,
I was surprised it was below 3 touchdowns. I
yeah,
figured it was going to be closer. If I was pricing it myself, I'd
yeah,
probably have it closer to 24.
yeah.
Key number there, maybe 25. But the
Mhm.
way that I see it, I'm not sure if Texas is going to get many stops. They're still not good defensively.
No,
I'm not going to overreact to them playing okay against UL Monroe.
right.
But Bama has so many weapons. Bryce
Yeah,
Young looked incredible in week 1. I know Utah State's
right.
not good or not, you know what I'm trying to say. But
Sure.
Bryce Young, his speed when it
Mhm.
came to his legs
Right,
jumped off the TV for me because
right,
I remember him being pretty athletic last year.
right.
It looks like he got significantly faster. And
Mhm.
I feel like the dual threat ability there, the ground game, which is incredible. The
Right.
receivers didn't really do much in week 1 because they didn't need to.
I was gonna
But
say they didn't have to do much.
but I'm trying to think what is Texas better at than Bama in anything? Even coaching staff. Does Texas have an edge in anything?
Barbecue. That's about it.
Barbecue,
Yeah.
arguably weather. You know,
Right.
like I don't know. They have
No,
bigger
it's
hats. Like I
yeah.
don't know. They don't have much, but I
No.
think Bama kills them.
This is I do. I agree. I think that and the other thing too is he bulked up. The quarterback, he was big. He's a little bigger, but he's put on some weight
And he got
and
faster. He
yeah,
bulked up and he got faster. So you know he's been spending a lot of time in the gym. But
right.
I
Man.
think Bama and Georgia are just on a collision course 2 times
Yeah.
over. And
Yeah.
Texas, they're going to be good. I'm not saying this team's going to be bad,
Right.
but I've seen Sarkisian in some big games in his career, even
Mhm.
as the offensive coordinator at Bama. I
Yeah.
have never been impressed by his work.
No.
So
Well, we'll see, but I just think
I think Bama
Saban,
scores 40 and change, and
yeah,
Texas probably scores 20 tops.
and
Give me a
Texas
45-20 final.
and Texas is sitting there going, you know, we're headed to the SEC. Maybe that wasn't the greatest idea we ever had, but
Yeah.
here we come. All right, 24 Texas at 17 Pitt. This game to me is I don't know. Pitt played really a fun game against West Virginia in the backyard brawl. Um, and Tennessee, Tennessee's kind of one of those the sexy pick for okay, they're going to compete in the SEC East. Normally, when that happens, Tennessee disappoints. Hasn't been since Phil Fulmer that they've lived up to expectations.
That's a name from the past.
Yeah, so I don't know what to think in this particular game. Um, I honestly, I think this is a game that Pitt could actually win straight up.
A lot of the games would come down to tempo
Hmm.
because Pitt, after being a very up-tempo offense with Pickett,
Right,
they have significantly slowed it down, mostly because Slovis isn't very good, and they want to dominate up front.
right,
Now, Tennessee's the opposite.
right,
Tennessee wants to go hyperspeed and then even faster than that
right,
because they will go with Heupel's UCF, offense, and they're going to try to
right,
go as fast as possible. Now, Tennessee had an advantage because they played basically a cupcake in week 1. Ball
right,
State's not very good. They
right,
dominated, and I'm sure they've been prepping for this game for a couple weeks.
right,
I don't think Pitt has because Pitt had the backyard brawl in week 1.
right.
So I wonder how much of a preparation edge Tennessee has because they've been able to circle this game on the calendar as their
Hmm.
first meaningful game. Now,
Right.
Tennessee's favored on the road. They should be, but I'm
Hmm.
not exactly a fan of laying 6 on the road.
Hmm.
Were you impressed by Pitt in week 1? Because I didn't think West Virginia was going to be that good going into the year. And Pitt was fortunate on a pick 6 that hit the guy's hands and was
Right.
returned to the house. I didn't think Pitt looked that good defensively, and that's usually their calling card.
Yeah. No, the answer to the question is no. I don't think they look that good, but I do think that I was pleased with not Sarkisian. Now you got me saying
Narduzzi?
Slovis's.
Oh,
So,
sorry,
I was going to say
Slovis. Okay.
Slovis's ability to stay out of trouble.
He was fine, you know?
You
He
know
wasn't
that
amazing. He wasn't
no
awful, and you need him to be a game manager,
right,
kind of.
and that's exactly what he did. He did all the things that he didn't do at USC.
Yeah.
Whenever there was a situation where he had to get rid of the ball, which could have ended up in an interception, he found the hot dog vendor on the third row and got the ball out of the building.
Mm,
So I thought that was good. So we'll see how it plays out. But I'm not sold on Tennessee yet. I just
that's
am
fair.
not.
I mean,
So
they beat a cupcake, so
yeah.
I think I am going to lean to Tennessee, though,
Hmm.
if I had to pick a side,
Sure.
just because I think Tennessee has much better athletes.
Hmm.
And we saw West Virginia, not many weapons. I'm not a big JT Daniels guy. I think he's okay.
Right. Hmm.
Milton's a lot. Uh, Hooker's a lot better. So they're
Right.
gonna have a massive upgrade there at quarterback for comparison. I think Hendon Hooker's
Mhm.
actually just a very good player in
Right.
comparison. But Tennessee has speed. They have athletes.
Hmm.
And Pittsburgh's secondary really was not good. They give up a lot
Right.
of big plays to West Virginia.
Hmm.
I think Hooker might pick this team apart, not to mention the tempo and the
Hmm.
preparation edge. If I was picking one side, I would
Right.
pick Tennessee. I think it's correlated. I think
Hmm.
if you like Pittsburgh to win
Yeah.
the game, take the under.
Right.
Because if they're going to win this game, they need to limit Tennessee offensively. They
Hmm.
can't get into a track meet.
Right.
I think they're going to fail in that regard. I'm going to lean to
Mhm.
Tennessee. I just think that they're the much more talented overall team.
Even 6 points on the road.
Yes, it's not ideal, I'll admit
Mhm.
it, but
Mhm.
Tennessee's been prepping for this game, especially since they lost to Pittsburgh last year.
Right.
It's a very nice revenge spot where
In
Pittsburgh
Knoxville.
in
Yeah.
yeah, it should be a nice revenge spot here where Pitt could not prepare for several weeks
Mhm.
because they had the backyard brawl in week 1. I think
Right.
it's a very good scheduling spot for Tennessee.
Mhm. Okay, Kentucky goes to the Swamp to play against the Gators, and I'll say, as I said, full disclosure, I'm a Gator fan, but I can be objective. And Kentucky has gone to the Swamp in the past and
They've done well.
actually done well,
Yeah.
which not a lot of SEC teams have. Um, and you got Stoops, who has done a good job in Kentucky, keeping things going. Um, Billy Napier has,
It's a hell of a debut.
yeah, he had a good debut against Utah. And I don't know. I think this game is. I don't know what to think of this game. I think it's probably. I think it's going to be very close because pretty much every time Kentucky and Florida play, they play close games. Um, I would give Florida the edge only because they're at the Swamp.
I think that this line is where it should be.
Hmm.
Of course, Rodriguez is still going to be out for Kentucky. That's a big
Hmm.
loss because he was extremely good last year. He had
Right.
roughly 1,400 rushing yards and 9 rushing touchdowns,
Right.
with 3 receiving touchdowns. So him being out is a big deal because he's one of the big playmakers there. I
Hmm.
think that last week's game against Utah is going to be basically Florida's entire season summed up in one game. It's
Hmm.
going to be a lot of nail biters, a lot
Hmm.
of pain and suffering, but they'll win
Hmm.
a decent amount of games. I don't
Right.
think Florida's going to blow out many quality teams because I'm still
Hmm.
not sold on them in the trenches. I
Hmm.
thought Utah dominated up front at various points in that game, which is
Hmm.
why Utah went up and down the field. They just threw an
Right.
interception to end the game. But I love Richardson as an athlete at quarterback. I
Hmm.
think he's extremely talented, but Kentucky is very experienced.
Hmm.
I think that Levis is a pretty solid quarterback as a whole, at least for college
Right.
purposes. It's 6.5.
Hmm.
I think Florida's going to win, but
Hmm.
6.5 to me seems way too many points for a Kentucky team that's been very competitive in the Swamp, like you said before.
Right.
I think it's an overreaction to week 1 against Utah. I'm going to go with Kentucky. I think it's too many points. Give me Florida in a one possession game,
Hmm.
probably by 3 or 4. I think it's a nail biter throughout.
I honestly think it's a 3-point game.
Yeah, that's what I see.
I don't see it being any bigger than that, and I think that Stoops is a great defensive coach, and if there's anybody who can game plan for Richardson, it would be Stoops. I'll be rooting for Florida, but we'll see. It's not going to be an easy game. They never are, and it should be entertaining. Now, the ABC game, half hour later, all of these times, by the way, are Eastern times. Number 10, USC at Stanford. To me, this is a prime time coming out party for USC, as I think, on ABC. I mean, there are games that they could have found that would have been perhaps more entertaining, but I think they wanted to give SC a national stage to showcase what they got.
I don't understand the line move in this game at all. Line opened up at 10.5. It's down to roughly 8.5. I think USC is going to smack the crap out of them.
Right.
I don't think Stanford has any quality athletes that can at least match up with USC. And you're looking at Stanford the past couple of years in the Shaw era.
Right.
It peaked with Andrew Luck, and that was about 10 years ago.
Right.
And yet he's still there. I just don't really like many of Stanford's weapons. We know their style of play. They're going to run the ball 30-something times. They're going to try to drain the entire clock. And they're going to try to kill you in the play action when they can. The issue is, do you like their quarterback? Because I saw McKay play last year, and he was really not very good, and they beat Colgate in week 1 by 31. Do you like McKay? I don't. I think Emmitt Smith's son's a good running back.
Sure.
But do I like McKee? Sorry, not McKay, McKee. Do I like McKee as a quarterback? No, I don't think he's very good. He's kind of a statue. USC has a bunch of great weapons. Williams is a very good quarterback. They have Addison. Even the defense was decent against Rice. They had 2-3 pick sixes in that game?
Yep.
I think USC wins going away. I get Stanford's at home. I get it's a big game for them. But USC, if they want to showcase that they're going to be an actual threat, they're going to win this game by 2+ touchdowns. And if USC gets to 35, or maybe even 30, which is a reasonable, number for them, maybe even on the lower side. Am I sure Stanford gets to 20? No, I don't think their offense is very good. So I'm going to go with USC as well. I think that they're going to win that game going away.
And the only thing that actually could cause, and this is something that the old joke, it never rains in Southern California, the game's being played in the Bay Area, but there's actually there's a hurricane off of the Pacific, and whether or not it goes as far north, they haven't decided yet whether there's going to be weather in Palo Alto, and whether they're going to get rain. That could muddy things up a bit, but I think is just ABC saying, you know what, let's showcase SC and let the world see that they actually are back. And that means beating Stanford significantly.
Well, you mentioned the hurricane, which are the very, very bad weather, which I also find fascinating because the total's gone up. It's gone from like 65 to 67.5. I don't understand that at all.
Makes no sense.
Money's coming on Stanford and the over, which doesn't make any sense at all. Like, if you think Stanford's going to cover, I think it's similar to the Pitt game. If they're going to cover, it's going under because they're not going to get many stops. So bad weather, keep that in mind. But USC, I just think on paper, is significantly more talented. And I don't see Stanford. I'm trying to imagine USC going 4 wide or 5 wide. And you have to watch Stanford's linebackers try to cover some tight ends or like a slot receiver, and the corners are outmatched. I don't think they're going to get many stops. I just think USC is going to win going away. The bad weather is also a wrinkle, though, so keep that in mind. But I think USC wins this game comfortably.
It's going to be entertaining, that's for sure. All right, so that's what we got on television. And basically every game is on television, but these are the games that are slotted as the key matchups. But there's some matchups tonight and tomorrow that I'm sure you want to showcase. So, my friend, I'll step aside and let you have the floor.
Cool. So we're going to go through the parlays. Full disclosure, yesterday's parlays not very good. I'll be honest. Did not go well. Hit a couple plays from each, but we didn't group the ones correctly, which I hate, when that happens. But to go through some... Yeah, it happens. To go through some 2 picks, though, going to start off with tennis. Going to the men's semifinal, we have Kakanov against Rude. I'm going to take the over 3.5 sets there at -215. I think it's going to be competitive. I think Kakinov's good enough to win a set or two off Rude, and Rude's potentially going to be the number one player in the world ranked-wise if he makes the final and beyond that. So I like a competitive match there. I think you're going to see moments for each guy. Give me the over 3.5 sets there. And I'm going to go with Central Florida on the money line against Louisville tonight. Louisville got smacked against Syracuse in week 1.
Mm-hmm.
They looked extremely outmatched. And Syracuse might be improved. I don't think Syracuse is a very good team. But Louisville scored 7 points. They got smacked. They gave up 200-plus rushing yards. And UCF has Plumlee at quarterback, who I like. They have Bowser at the running back position. They have a good offensive line. Their defense is pretty good. And you, of course, know a lot more about coaches than I do. Do you think Satterfield makes it out of the year? Because I don't.
No.
I think he's a prime candidate to get fired midway through the season.
Yeah. Louisville can't tolerate losing.
I'm shocked he's still there. I thought they were going to fire him during the offseason.
It's a sweet job. I don't know why, and they've got the money to eat anything that's left on that contract, which I don't think it's that big a contract. So I think that Louisville does make the change, and you're quite possibly right. One of the things that used to happen, it doesn't happen, in days. The old days, they would wait to the end of the season to get rid of somebody.
Now you buy out everybody.
Yeah, you just get them out as, could be the 5th game of the season, could be the 7th game of the season, doesn't matter. They, get them out. And the reason is because of recruiting.
Yeah.
They need to make it look like they're, heading in a direction. And there's some talented kids on Louisville's team who will probably be up in the portal. Some of them may play for Central Florida at the end.
We know Cunningham's a very talented quarterback, but
yeah.
I mean, Syracuse crushed them. Like, Cunningham was awful in week 1. And Satterfield's teams have not really made any bowl games recently. They've not been very good.
No.
And UCF, they just lost this team last year on that heartbreaking pick 6 by Gabriel in Louisville. This game's a very big game for UCF for just revenge angle purpose.
Right.
It's also in the bounce house. It's a very difficult place to play in as a road team.
Right.
And it's also a Friday game, so the crowd's going to be packed. I think UCF wins this game going away, but I'll take them on the money line here as my second pick in that 2-teamer. And then moving over to baseball, I have the Orioles at minus 130 on the money line, or you take the run line at plus 150 against the Red Sox. You have Bello going up against Voth. Voth I like. He's actually been pretty good recently, and the Orioles have been incredible at Camden this season.
Yeah.
The Red Sox are not very good on the road. Bello, I'm not sold on. The Red Sox just got smacked by Tampa. We've talked about this before. They're playing out the string. Baltimore had a pretty underwhelming past couple of games against Toronto, but they're still into the playoff hunt, and they're 7-5 against Boston this season. It's mostly fading Bello, who I don't think is very good. Voth's been pretty decent lately, but Baltimore's 40-28 at home. I like the Orioles in that one. You have any thoughts on that one?
No, I think that Baltimore really feels that they, if they can play decent baseball the rest of the way, that the people in front of them, which is Tampa Bay and
Seattle,
the Blue Jays in Seattle, Tampa Bay and Seattle. I'm sorry, Tampa Bay and the Jays play a big series. Tampa Bay will be, but
they have
the
a couple
Yankees
of
this weekend.
Series.
Yeah, they got a 3-game series over the weekend in New York. Then they have to get on a plane, go up to Toronto, and play 4 games in 5 days. So a lot will be known this time next week as to whether or not where Tampa's going to be, where Toronto's going to be in that race for not just the wild card, but potentially even for the American League East. So some very difficult games. Baltimore, on the other hand, has a pretty easy schedule the rest of the way. And could they make up that, 4.5 games they got, or 3.5 games out of the playoffs at the moment? So every win is an important win. And if Boston's just showing up to pick up paychecks, which it seems like that's what they're doing, that means the Orioles need to continue to win. And, as you said, their record at Camden has been very, very impressive.
And I'm concerned for Boston for motivation, because we talked in the past about how they're playing out the string.
Right.
They were trying to avoid getting swept by Tampa,
Right.
and they responded by benching Bogarts.
Right.
They gave him the day off, so they clearly don't care. So
Right.
you have one team that's motivated, that's good at home. I'm going
Right.
to go with the Orioles there. Plus 150 also for the run line. It
Right.
was mostly the money line price.
Mhm.
130 against Bello. Like, Bello's not very good.
Right.
And we know Boston's bullpen's not very good either. So I think it's a
Right.
good price. And looking
Mhm.
at the second game, the pitching matchup's iffy on both sides with Giolito against Caprillion. But the
Right.
White Sox won yesterday, what was it, 14-2, 16-2?
Yeah, it wasn't easy.
It's a similar story to what I just said about the Red Sox and Orioles game.
Right.
Oakland's playing for nothing. They've
Right.
gotten killed for the last couple of, pretty much all season long. And the
Right.
White Sox, don't look now. They're in striking distance to win that division.
Sure.
They're hanging in there. And the White
Mhm.
Sox won that comfortably yesterday. Oakland can't hit. They're averaging below 3 runs per home game.
Right.
The White Sox at 155. I know Giolito has not been great. He's been decent
Mhm.
2 of his last 3 starts.
Right.
But does that price seem a little bit low to you based on how bad Oakland actually is and how the White Sox have actually played decent baseball lately?
Well, I just it seems very low. I mean, because as you said, Oakland is just very Oakland-like. I mean, normally they're a competitive team. This year, they're not even close to being competitive.
Well, they're not competitive, but the payroll's the same. You
Right.
can read
Well,
into that how you want. They don't spend any
gonna
money on
be
anybody.
that's gonna be the same no matter what.
Until they move maybe to Vegas. Maybe.
Right. Couple of quick things here while we got you, and that is any thoughts on Montreal and the BC Lions in the Canadian Football League tonight? Little help here from. He's got BC -3. The Alouettes aren't a good team.
That's
Your
Chris.
thoughts on that?
That's Chris.
Yeah.
So Chris likes BC -3.
So
Gives his reasons there.
mhm.
I, truth be told, follow a ton of sports and a ton of leagues. I've been slacking in the CFL. I know about it kind of through Chris, and I follow it some on my own right. But for the most part, I'm not exactly a CFL guy. So Chris is definitely the main guy you should reach out to, but he likes BC in that one. I have nothing more to add or subtract
Mhm.
from that opinion.
Now it's been a terrible year for Montreal, and so look, BC should be fine. If you're a British Columbia fan, this could be a good night for you because the Alouettes just aren't playing well.
Yeah, my main advice for Montreal: too many vowels in the last name. You might want to change it. Alouettes. Sure, whatever.
Yeah, it's French Canadian, so
Yeah, it's French Canadian. Alouette, silhouette. They're not very
right
good.
there you go. So there you go. All right, what do we got?
Well, I was gonna
the
read
money
off
lines,
payouts.
right? Yeah, go ahead.
So White Sox -155.
Yeah.
Caprillian's not been good. I'll just fade Oakland from here on out. And you're
Okay.
getting +115 with the White Sox as the road team on the run line. I think it's a very good price. So the money line parlay for the first 2-teamer, or the non-spread ones, it's $208.86, including the $100 stake. So a +108 payout. And for the second parlay, if you just take the money lines, that pays out at $291.06. But if you take the -1.5 for the Orioles and the White Sox, it's $100 to win $537.50.
Not bad. Let's go to the 4-team parlay.
Yep. So for the 4-teamer, full disclosure here, I decided, since it is the weekend show, or since it is the Friday show,
Right.
I splurged on a lot of weekend action. So we're going to look at a 4-pick parlay in the NFL. Starting off with the Chiefs. I think they're going to dominate in week 1. We talked about that briefly yesterday. Arizona had a pretty underwhelming offseason. They lost Chandler Jones. The Chiefs in week 1 dominate historically. I think they'll win this game by at least a touchdown. Moving on to the rivalry game between the Saints and the Falcons. One of these teams are good. The other team's not. The Falcons have Mariota at quarterback, who I'm not exactly a fan of. I think he's an okay stopgap guy. But Winston's back. The Saints' offense is good. I think the Saints' defense is a top 10 unit. Give me the Saints on the money line at -225. Then moving on to the total of the parlay, it's going to be the Raiders and the Chargers. It's a bit of an alternative total, but I'm going to take the over 50.5 at -140. We talked about
Mhm.
this game yesterday as well.
Right.
Do you expect either team to play defense in this game?
Why would they?
Correct. So I like the over. I think you'll see a lot of points. Even 27-24, you get over. And then the final one is an extreme, basically a teaser kind of 6-point whatever kind of parlay throw in. I got the Panthers plus 7.5 at minus 320 against the Browns at home. At the end of the day, you have Brissett at quarterback for Cleveland. I don't
Mhm.
think Cleveland's going to be very good. Carolina's got the Mayfield revenge angle, however you want to view it. But most
Right.
importantly, McCaffrey's actually healthy, or he's
Mhm.
somewhat healthy. He was
Right.
on the injury report, but he's a full participant in practice. He's going to play. But Carolina is basically fully healthy. Cleveland's missing their, I don't know, $900 million guy, all guaranteed.
Right.
And I don't think the roster is very good. So if you're telling me that I expect Carolina to hang around in this game, I do. I'll take them plus the 7.5 against Cleveland. They might
Mhm.
win the game outright. But the money lines for this actual bet, or honestly, it's the same thing every time. It's just a $100 bet to win
Mhm.
$615.18. Are there any plays out of those that concern you at all?
Ugh, not really. I mean, we talked about Kansas City and Arizona yesterday. We talked about the Saints and Atlanta.
Do you want to make a
Um,
case for Atlanta or at home? Because I don't want to
I
make a case.
can't.
I don't think that team's very
I
good.
wish I could,
Yeah.
but you hit on when was the last time Marcus Mariota actually started a game?
Tennessee.
Yeah, so it's been a while.
Yeah.
So I'm not, I don't see that happening. Vegas, they're playing at they're playing at the Death Star in Vegas, and these are two teams that prefer not to play defense. So I don't see. They had a fun. They had a fun playoff game last year.
Yeah.
So
Well,
again,
it was technically a playoff game. It was a win and you're in game.
right,
It was
winning
technically a
your own,
regular season game,
right,
but still.
but it was a fun game.
Yeah.
And Carolina and Cleveland, we've already talked about this one ad nauseum. It just they, I- the Browns don't have an offense, so and I don't care, you know, who's there. Um, they're just they don't they're that's they put the D in dysfunctional. Cleveland does, and no, I think the Panthers will be fine. And so no, I've got no beef on any of that. That
I
it
played it
looks good to
safe.
me.
If you want to go Carolina money line, you can, but
Yeah.
I think that game's a coin flip. I'll take more than
Hmm.
a touchdown if I can. It's still paying at plus 515, so it's still a pretty
Hmm.
solid payout in general. But yeah, figured since I have the college football show with Steen in like half an hour or so,
Hmm.
I don't exactly do much NFL coverage anymore. So there are my NFL picks, or there are some a four
There
pick
they are.
parlay you can make for Sunday. So there you go.
Um, any final questions, folks? Because we'll try to get Scott out of here so he can get ready for his next show.
I got
But
time. It's just a relatively quiet sports
right,
card, you know.
right. Any thoughts, guys, from any of you? There's some games here on the board, both college and pro, that you'd like to ask questions about. We got a few minutes to check it out and see what's going on. Um, it's we're getting to a point where by 2025, when basically all of these teams, USC and UCLA, will be in the Big Ten, and Ohio, Oklahoma, and Texas will be in the SEC.
Can't wait
Where
for USC Rutgers in 2025.
there you go.
Yeah.
It's that's going to be a great game. Thanks to us. Thank you very much, for Andrew, for paying attention and coming by. We appreciate it. A favor, guys, and that is to hit the like button. You're here, more than happy to have you. Tonight games, baseball question. Oops, I hit the wrong button. My bad. There it is. Cubs Giants. Any thoughts on that one? And also on the Padres and the Dodgers. That game's being played down in San Diego.
I'll start off with the Dodgers. I'll take them. They're
Hmm.
laying a decent price at 165. I know May's been hit or miss. Clevenger's been basically the same pitcher. They
Hmm.
are ERA separated by .02, so they're pretty comparable. The Dodgers have owned this team. They're 10-3 head to head. Soto's been a disaster lately. He's getting booed at home games. There's really nothing to like about the Padres right now. And you could argue they might choke and miss the playoffs. It wouldn't
Hmm.
be I think it's feasible for them to potentially miss the playoffs. Give me the Dodgers. They take every rivalry game seriously, and I just think they're going to win. So give me the Dodgers there. Cubs, Giants. I like the Giants' first 5. It's always tricky when you have a big pitching advantage, but the
Mm-hmm.
game's taking place with the wind blowing out at
Mm-hmm.
Wrigley, or I believe it's blowing out.
Yeah.
Smiley's been okay lately. The Giants haven't been good. They just played a doubleheader yesterday. But I do think Rodon's going to pitch well in this spot. I
Mm-hmm.
kind of like the first. Oh, boy. I think I'm going to go with the Giants.
Okay.
Smiley, I wonder how much of it is fool's gold because he was really never good, and he's
Mm-hmm.
randomly been good for the past couple starts.
Right.
I know for a fact Rodon is an ace. It's a
Mm-hmm.
decent price on the Giants with their best pitcher on the mound.
Quick question on Miami and the Mets.
Miami can't hit, so that's a good start for the under.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see what the story is with the pitching matchup. You have Peterson, who's mediocre, against Cabrera. I like that under.
Mm-hmm.
Cabrera's been really, really good,
Mm-hmm.
and Peterson is hit or miss, but the Marlins actually cannot hit. They're allergic to scoring runs. I like that under. I think you'll see probably a 4-2 type game if I had to guess.
How about the Nationals and the Phillies over 8?
Corbin's randomly been decent his last
Mm-hmm.
couple times out, but I like the over.
Yeah.
Syndergaard's joining the Phillies. I think's been mediocre at best. I don't think he's been amazing by any means. And Corbin struggled against the Phillies so far this season.
Mm-hmm.
I like the over. The Nationals offensively have been really good for the past week. It's why I took a team total over with them earlier in the week. Give me the over as my favorite play in that game. I think you'll probably see one of these teams get to 6 perhaps,
Mm-hmm.
but
Right.
8.5. Doesn't that seem a little bit low with the wind blowing out and with Corbin against Syndergaard?
Yeah.
It seems a little low.
It does. And the other thing is that, by the way, for those of you who are betting on games in Southern California, we just talked about the Padres and the Dodgers and Anaheim playing. It is raining presently in San Diego, and there's a very good chance that that rain's going to last for the rest of the day. So keep an eye on the rain in Southern California because it could affect what happens today. So there you go. Not only are we giving you inside information with regard to how to pick the games, we're also giving you up to date weather reports from around the country. But yeah, rain in Southern California right now, which could move up the coast as we talked about for tomorrow's football game. But that's the latest from Weather Central. Back to you, Scott.
Yeah. Just one thing I do want to kind of touch upon before we wrap up.
Sure.
I know there is a UFC card this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
However, there's really just a massive scramble going on right now because the main event between Diaz and Chimaev, Chimaev missed weight by 10 pounds. So that fight's been canceled, and they're trying to find a new fight. There's rumors Tony Ferguson might fight against Diaz, which is going to be a thrilling fight if that does happen. I'd be thrilled if that happened. But I'd at least want to touch upon it because it's a bit of a rant here. If you're going to try to compete for a title and you're going to try to be a guy in general who is supposed to be a future face of an organization,
right?
You can't miss weight by 10 pounds.
Yeah.
That's embarrassing, and that's really inexcusable in any degree. It's one thing if you miss it by a pound or two. You know, things happen.
Right. Right.
10 pounds? It means you weren't even trying.
Right.
It's embarrassing. I had to bring that up.
Well, no, and look, the other part of this that I think is very important is that, people tend to purchase pay-per-view for these events ahead of time. And,
It's like $80 now.
Right. So you're throwing down $80 to watch a card, and the main event, the guy who, the event you're paying for, the guy doesn't make weight. That's just crazy. And
It's not even missing weight. You missed it by double digits, or like at the last minute, you might have missed it by like 7 pounds, but still
blowing off weight.
You got to give people refunds. You got to make that card maybe free for people.
Yeah,
it's an awful situation for Dana White,
right?
But I don't know what other choice you have.
Well, you don't, and Dana White has been cashing big checks for a long time. So by all means, that's one you don't want to I agree with you. That's a give the money back because it's the right thing to do.
We'll see what happens. If Ferguson ends up fighting Diaz,
Mhm,
then maybe you can make a case for
mhm,
not having a money back situation. But
mhm.
if you're going to be swapping opponents at the
Right.
last minute, it's probably a 3-round fight instead of a
Mhm.
5-round fight.
Right.
So you're already missing an extra 10 minutes from the main event.
Right. The quick question from Scott. He wants to know when you and Sheen will be on with the football show.
So it's not going to be live. We usually record it at around 3:15.
Hmm.
So we will be posting it probably around 4 or so, but it should come out at some point today
Hmm.
in about, I don't know, an hour and a
We'll
half,
just
give or
we'll
take.
say 2 hours to be fair.
Yeah, give or take.
Yeah. So there you go. So around 6 o'clock. But the good news, as Scott just said, is that it is taped. So therefore, you can always go back and check it out no matter what time. Got time tonight? Look at it tonight. Want to check it early in the morning? You can do that as well. Because you're going to be talking about. I assume you're not talking about much going on tonight in the way of college football.
I got UCF. That's all I got.
Okay, so there you go. So we'll do that and get that done. So anyway, I have no final thoughts other than have a wonderful weekend, both watching college and NFL, and of course, there's plenty of good baseball races left to go. So if you can't find anything, oh, and forgot, how did I forget the U.S. Open? So there's if, no matter what's going on from standpoint of if you are a fan of sports, there's something going on that is very entertaining to you this weekend.
Yep, definitely exciting. But either way, I'll be back once again here on Monday.
Yep.
And until then, good luck to all of you and all of your bets. Bye, everyone.
Take care.